Greetings, mind crafters, and welcome to another Mindcraft discussion on this glorious day in northern Vermont. My name is Kimberly Quinn, and that's little Giovanni right there in the middle, dead center of the snowshoe trail. And what we want to talk about today, while we're still walking, right, G, is are you experiencing a deficit of self-love? Self-love deficit. Sometimes you'll see it as self-love deficit disorder, but we know how I feel about that word. If it's not enough, sort of struggle and pain maybe to not be feeling that you've got a lot of self-love going on, do we really need to strap the word disorder on? I don't think so. Just a dumb shame word that just should not be in the English language or any other language on the face of this earth, in my opinion. So anyway, self-love deficits, that just means that we're not feeling enough self-love. So how does that happen? Well, it happens mostly from early messages that we get as kids, right? And we're not saying this with blame and all kinds of things like that, because that doesn't help anybody. It's also long since over, so that doesn't help anybody either. What we do need to do, what we do need to do is reprogram, though, because so many messages went in the vault early on. And in case you don't know, there's something called infantile amnesia. So basically, we don't have memories before the age of 3. Now, obviously, that varies person to person a little bit, and that also excludes trauma, because if there's something traumatic, that will tend to have a memory, or possibly memories there that are earlier than other people. And trauma doesn't necessarily have to be something like huge and abusive. It can be that, that the 2-year-old's, grandmother lived right next door, and then mom or dad and dad or whoever got transferred to another state. Like that's huge for a 2-year-old to have granny right there, even though it was a good thing that the parents, had this opportunity. So it's like a big, huge change like that could also instill some memories. But the point is, when we think about all those things that were said to us, the good stuff will keep. It's obviously that's not the hard stuff we have to work through. It's the not so positive stuff. If we think of 2-year-olds running around, 2.5-year-olds, almost 3-year-olds, they're full of language. They're full of talking about their birthday. They're full of talking about Santa Claus or whoever, or their best friend and, their dog, right, Jay? Right. And so they've got this full 2.5-year-old life going on, yet they really don't remember a lot of it. So think of all of that liveliness, all that life, all that conversation that they said, that things were said to them in the vault as a 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 plus old person. There's all kinds of stuff in there that we're not aware of. And so if there are situations that we grew up in, maybe it was a teenage pregnancy and mom wasn't really ready for you, really didn't want the pregnancy. That's just one of a gazillion examples. There's, addiction, who knows, all this crap, right, that can happen in a family, and that stuff that was said to us. So that is probably the source of a lot of it. So here's the thing, like we said earlier, it's water under the bridge as far as we can't turn the clocks back and change it, right? And I would come to the sort of realization, or I have come to the realization anyway, that I wouldn't want to change any of it. Not one thing, because I grew from all of it. Not saying I want to relive it either, because a lot of it was super painful and turbulent, and actually some violence even in my childhood. But I wouldn't want to relive it because I grew like a weed. We call that post-traumatic growth. You're just, gosh, it's part of who I am, and it's, I just wouldn't change any of it. But the point is, the thing with the self-love thing and the worthiness, which is what we're really talking about, just like anything else, takes effort. And it is our own choice to start chipping at that and feeling worthy. It's not like the worthiness fairy, circles around with her, wand of worthiness pixie dust and drops it on her head. It doesn't work like that. It takes active effort, and it takes active effort to talk back to the voices, in air quotes, and realize. So we got to become hyper aware. The more time we can spend, preferably if you've got the woods. She's trying to wait for me to. Yeah, mommy, be just a minute. So to talk back to it when we find ourselves in situations that the situation itself might not even be deep, but it stirs up some old shame feelings. Then we say, okay, whoa, wait, that was like a flare from the vault. I don't know what it is. I just know I don't feel good right here, and I don't know why, right? Talk back to it and bring in things from the present. We got to talk back to all that stuff and to rewire it. And the thing is, we talked about this before, that thoughts come first, right? Minecraft is about becoming the boss of your brain. Thoughts first, followed by feelings. We cannot feel shame if we are not having shameful thoughts first, even if they're unconscious. That's how it works. Obviously the brain activity has to be there before we can feel it. And then what we want to do is seek higher ground, if that's what's going on. Seek higher ground, to sort of shift out of that place of shame or guilt or regret or whatever the negative emotion is, into a more positive place. And the other thing is, next, besides the whole talk about the vault and talking back to it and rewiring your thinking, is also to realize we've got to putting ourselves first. I've done so many workshops or seminars on hashtag self-care is not selfish. There's some kind of ridiculous, it's ridiculous, right, G? Totally. This like ridiculous stigma with taking care of ourselves and putting ourselves first. And I think it's especially with women, and that it's men too, and everybody in between. But especially there's a, it's 2023. Like there's still a thing with that, especially if you're a woman who happens to be a mother. So this is the correction I want to say. So for moms out there, is that because we're supposed to put our kids first, right? Well, the thing is, you are putting yourself first if you're putting your kids first. So stay with me for a second here. Because like for me, I absolutely love, it's current because I'm still a mother, thankfully, all 5 of them, fabulous 5 young adults. I call them the Fab 5, actually. I love being a mother. And in the early days, it was just my mission in life to be the best mom I could. And so I absolutely put them before myself. And here's the thing, to kind of shake that idea of, oh, well, if you didn't, putting yourself before your kid, you're not putting yourself before your kids if you're following your heart, because that's really what you want to do. So it helps to take a lot of that ridiculous stereotypical stuff and shame and you're being selfish if you go get a massage or something. No, you come back a better mother, a better partner if you go get a massage or something like that. But putting your kids first when you're loving being a mother, you are putting yourself first by following your own passion of being a great mom, right? So it's kind of just takes away that stupid thing, And I didn't actually do much for myself back then that was considered just for me, because I love being out sledding with them and being skiing with them and doing whatever with them. And also I would go away, usually once a year, like the first week of December, with my women friends who are also in the same stage. We had 5, one of them has 2 and the other one has 3. And the husbands, thankfully, were wonderfully supportive. We'd come back and the houses were all cleaned up. We did not ask what the kids had for dinner, even though we left it, because they probably had Oreos, with, whipped cream and M&Ms for dinner. But we just don't ask. Just the best thing is just to not ask. And we went back, after shopping and drinking wine and eating appetizers and a big fat steak and buying Christmas presents, was usually the first or second weekend in December. We came back, and sometimes it was overnight, but sometimes we were fortunate enough to get 2 nights. So just a weekend out of the 52 weekends in the year, that was it. And we would come back so totally recharged, just feeling better for ourselves, our wells replenished, and also being, again, better partners and better moms and everything else, and how important it is to put yourself first. And people don't get this. They think it's like a bad selfish. So I guess it's selfish, but it's a good selfish. Bad selfish is just kind of having behavior, let's say like in a business situation where you're willing to step on everybody in your way to get to the top. I mean, most people would agree that's just not a good way to be, right? That's a whole different thing than authentically keeping yourself filled up so that you are able also to give to other people. So like Oprah says, my good friend who doesn't know, right, G? Totally. It's like what's in the cup is for you, and what spills out is for everybody else. And I just did a video a few days ago about there's no honor in burnout, none. I mean, you're no good to you. You're no good to anybody else. Quite honestly, you're not that fun to be around, just saying. Burned out people are crispy and crabby, and sometimes, they can often sink into a depression too, because, burnout defined is really, it's very similar to depression, right? Because you once cared about your students, or you once cared about the people who work for you and with you. You once cared about, selling this phenomenal thing that helps the world, and and you've got it in there somewhere, but it's buried beneath all the lack of appreciation, the too many hours worked, the not enough walks in the woods, the not enough physical exercise, the too much, Chick-fil-A because you're in a hurry. And it's all that stuff. And that can lead to this lack of interest in things that usually interest you, which is the essence of depression. Obviously, it's more complicated than that. It involves neurotransmitters and more symptoms than just that one. But basically, burnout is you're kind of there, and there's no honor in allowing yourself to get there. And it's also good to take a look at that without judgment and with love and kindness, to ask yourself, if you're there, why am I here? How did I get here? What are the choices I made? Because we can blame this one and that boss and this boss, but in the end, and not saying that that's not all part of the mix, in the end, we are in charge of our own schedule, even if it doesn't feel like we are. In the end, we can say no. They're not saying there are consequences to that, might point us in a new direction, but in the end, the only people who allow us to get burnt out are ourselves. And that's it. And so the source of that, this is kind of going where we're going with the self-love deficit situation. Somebody who's currently burnt out. Again, I'm not saying with blame and judgment. Absolutely not. There's no point in that. We're talking about enhancing our well-being. And sometimes we just have to take a good hard look at our choice making, because someone who truly values themselves, really truly values themselves, and truly loves themselves is not going to, end up burnt out, or at least not going to do it twice, okay? Because maybe external circumstances and got hard and whatever, and you realize, what am I doing? I'm missing out on my kids and my wife or husband or spouse or partner or whoever. I haven't skied or run or hiked or done anything in months. The whole winter went by and I didn't get out once. You got to look at that. You just got to look at that, because somewhere in there, there's a deficit. And it just because the external circumstances are mirroring the internal, not the internal deficit of love and feeling of worthiness. Because burnout is just, we're expressing that out here, what's going on in here, and that's what we're really, really saying. Okay, so if you feel like you're on the path or you're not a path, if you feel like you're in a place, there we go, of a deficit of self-love, you want to put the brakes on right now, because your life minutes are so important on this day. We don't want to put off anything till later that we can do right now, and at least starting the conversation here with yourself of, I feel like I'm beginning to feel burned out. Well, that if you're just beginning, that's the good news, because that means you've got time to stop it and really examine what's going on underneath that is sort of causing you to allow certain things to happen and to make certain decisions. And there you go. Because really, if we keep ourselves filled up and we are loving ourselves through in and throughout, all the rest is easy. Really, or much easier. Let's say that. All right, awesome. This is Kimberly Quinn signing off from the gorgeous Notch in Northern Vermont with little Giovanni. Have a mindful day and love yourself first.